Hello and welcome. I hope you're having a great day. In this video, I'm going to break down options and just the very basics of it. If I took the time to go through everything to do with options in that world, the video would be way too long. You probably wouldn't have clicked on it. So I'm going to try to keep this super short so that you can learn the basics of options and kind of what a call and a put is, if you've heard that term before, and just why would I actually want to get an option or how's it going to benefit me. So I'm going to break that down super quick for you here. Options is a contract to buy a stock at a certain price, essentially. And what that means is, say you had a stock that was at $100. Well, instead of buying the stock at $100 and having to fork over a bunch of money, you could buy a contract on owning that stock at, say, $90, $95, $100, $105, $110. And as it goes along, that's called a strike price. So you'll actually have on what's called an options tree. So you'll have 110, 105, 100, 95, 90, right? As it works its way through. If the stock itself is at $100, it's going to cost you money to put down in order to buy that stock if you wanted to just buy the stock outright. If you went to buy an option, and say you thought this stock was going to go up, well, you could buy a cheaper, what's called a call, and I'll go over that a little bit later, but you could buy a call at $110, and this would be relatively cheap depending on the stock and on volatility and all that stuff, but it would be relatively cheap. It could even just be $2, and I'll break down some pricing in a little bit. But basically, instead of forking over a lot of money to buy this stock at $100, you could buy the option at, say, 110 or 105, and your hope would be that the stock will work its way up to this price, and this contract now is going to be worth a lot more than $2. It could even be worth $10, $15 at that point, depending on how it all works out. So you're going to go from $2 to $15. If that was just a normal stock, that would be a lot of money, right? So it's a good way to kind of boost your account if you get it right. Options can be very confusing and hard to play properly, but if you can play it right, then it can be very advantageous for you. So let's break down just a real world analogy so you can kind of wrap your head around, well, why would this contract even be worth anything? Say I went to buy a car, and car prices right now are going up, right? So say a year ago I bought a car for $50,000 and I signed the contract with the dealer. Well, it's taken them a year for them to get around and actually deliver this car to me. They had chip shortages, all this stuff, there were issues. Well, now the price of that car is $60,000. So I have a contract where I can buy this car for $50K, but I know the actual value of the car now is $60,000. So obviously that contract is worth money. It has an intrinsic value of $10,000 because 60 minus the 50, right? So the intrinsic value, which is in options, works the same way. But just I want you to understand why a contract even means anything. If you knew that you could go and get buy a contract off of somebody to buy a car, and it was $50K, and then you could turn around and sell the car for 60, then you know that you can make some money. Obviously, that's probably not going to happen in the real world, but I just want to help wrap your head around why would a contract even be worth money. So it's kind of the same thing with stocks. You're going to have all of these contracts along these prices are going to be worth different amounts. If the stock's $100, the farther up you go, up to say $150, that contract's going to be super cheap. Because what are the chances of the stock going from $100 to $150? Now, the other thing to know is with contracts, they expire. So they expire every third Friday. So third Friday. Usually it's the third Friday of every month, and on some bigger stocks, they'll have weeklies, they call them as well. So it could be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or just every Friday of the month. But it's always going to be basically, if it's just a normal kind of stock, it's going to be the third Friday of every month. So if you have a contract that's set to expire, say, a week from now, that's going to be pretty cheap if it was all the way up at $150, because what are the chances of the stock going from $100 all the way up to $150? It's not likely. So that contract's going to be cheap. Now, if you bought a contract that was $105 and it was, say, 4 months out, then that might be a little more expensive because the chances of the stock possibly going up are higher, right? But it's still going to be cheaper than buying the actual stock, usually overall. So one thing you should understand is that each contract is 100 shares. So 100 shares, one contract is always 100 shares. Two contracts, 200 shares, three contracts, 300 shares, okay? Let's just say that the contract costs $2. There's a lot to pricing contracts, a huge mathematical formula. I don't want to get into it right now. Just know with Tesla, say, or a really high price stock, the contracts are going to be a lot more expensive. Anything with high volatility or very volatile stock, something that's a little bit lower priced or not as volatile, it's going to be cheaper. But let's just say it's $2. So you can get into a contract for $2. So you have to times that by 100. So it's not just putting over $2. Anytime you see the price, it's going to be times 100. So that's going to equal, let's do it here, equal 200 bucks, right? So if I have the same stock, and let's just say the stock, XYZ stock is 200 bucks. So if the stock itself is $200 and I want to fork over and buy 100 shares, it's going to cost me $20,000. So I have to have $20,000 in capital to buy 100 shares of this stock. But if I go to buy the options contract, let's just say all else equal, just nice and simple, I might only have to put down 200 bucks. The other good thing with contract options is you can only lose the $200 that you put in. Your max loss will always ever be what you put into it. You can't lose more. So sometimes that puts people's mind at ease. But the other thing is if you have a smaller account, it can really help because now you're actually getting into this good stock that's 200 bucks and you don't have to fork over 20K. You can put over $200 or just, my point is something less than the full 20,000 and you can actually be in there and enjoy the gains if hopefully it goes your way. You got to watch out for when it expires, all that stuff. I can get into that more later on, but just I want you to understand the basics. The other thing you need to know is if you actually go to put on a trade, what are you doing? It's called a call. So if you want the stock to go up, you want to buy a call. If you want the stock to go down, you're going to get a put. So I think the stock is going to go up, I'm going to buy a call. The way to remember that is if I call somebody, I pick up the phone. When I'm done with the phone, I put it down. So call up, put down. That's a way for you to kind of help you remember, because at first I remember it can be quite confusing. So basically, just to wrap this up, it's a contract at a certain strike price in order for you to kind of own that stock, and you want the price of the contract itself to go up. So if the price was $100 and you bought 110 and this thing now goes up to 120, well, just like the car going up to 60K, at 120 you have intrinsic value of $10 on that contract. So you've gone from $2 to say 10 or 15, because there's even more involved with time decay and time value. There's a lot to options, but I'm going to end it there. Just hopefully you understand that if you go to get a call, you're going up, you get a put, you want it to go down, and you can use a lot less capital to get into a stock. And also, just real quick, sometimes people use it for hedging. So if you bought this stock and you wanted it to obviously go up, you could buy a put to hedge your bets so that if the stock ends up going down, you're at least hedging your bets and you'll make a little bit of money on that put that you bought. And at least you can make up for some of the losses that you occurred by buying the stock and having it go the wrong way against you. So that's just two examples of how you can use the stock or use an option to help you out. There's a lot more than that. You can even sell stocks or sell options where it's the complete opposite. Then you're selling the put, you want it to go down and up there. There's a lot going on. I'm going to do further videos on it. Comment below if you have any questions or there's anything you want to learn about options, and I can make a video about that. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you on the next one.